So today's class is sponsored by our dear friend Shimon Grant for the Refuah Shlema of his dear wife Brigitte Félicie Bat Simon, and we encourage anybody else who wants to sponsor a lesson to do so.
Okay, can we just make the Chumash handy?
Yes.
Okay, so we were in the middle of discussing the woman's sentence, on the heels of the eating of and feeding to Adam from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So we are on page 49 in my edition, page Memtet. The last I think we started it. So we're on the second paragraph, the last paragraph on the page, in the second column. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we discussed that there are three things. Three mitzvot that a woman has. She has hafrashat Chalah, hadlakat nerot for Shabbos, and also the mitzvot of Nida. And we said that they all correspond to Adam Arishon's state after being fed from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So she spilled his blood, so that corresponds to Dam Nida, and she put out his light, which is the candles of Shabbos, and Hafrashat Chalah, because Adam Arishon was the Chalah of the world. And we're going to get into that. Okay, so Ubazen navo al ha'amor etzel onesh ha'isha. And with this we will get to that which is said regarding the punishment of the woman. Harbe arbe itzvonech veheronech. So there's a double lashon here of harbe arbe, that God will make abundant itzvonech, her sadness, veheronech, and her pregnancy. What does that mean? V'yu amro harbe arbe shu kaful. The double language of harbe arbe, that her pain, her sadness will become abundant, but it's doubled. Echad al amro itzvonech. One harbe is referring to the itzvonech, her sadness. Shu ariboy dam nidot kol yameh, and that is from the abundance of menstruation throughout her days. Ukra'a itzavon, and it's referred to here in the pasuk as itzavon, as a sadness. Alki hadava binidata atzuvat ruach, that one who is weak in her menstruation, when she's weak or feeling faint, so it causes her to have a sadness of spirit. Meaning, sadness is a direct over here is a reference to the sadness that she experiences as a result of her cycle. V'hasheni hu al amro veheronech. And the second language in the verse of to make abundant is referring to heronech, specifically the pain that she experiences during pregnancy. Shehu tisha chadashim shel tzar ha'ibor. That is the 9 months of the pain of carrying the fetus. Be'etzev tel divanim. And the verse continues and it says, with pain she will bring children to bear, meaning she will give birth. Al chevle yoleda yavola, and that's the specific pains and difficulty of actual childbirth. V'yihya ki al ma sheshavcha damo shel olam, because she spilt the blood of the world, so to speak, she introduced mortality into the world. Omer itzvonech adam nida. That's why sadness, the word itzvonech, your sadness or her sadness, is a reference to the blood of menstruation. And the fact that she extinguished the light of the world, the lamp of the world, meaning the neshama of man, hu omer vehironech. Oh, so I'm sorry, I don't know. Actually, now it occurs to me, I'm not sure if we finished the last paragraph, because what we started to draw parallels to, that I don't believe we ever finished, was, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do it, but over here it seems clear that really each thing corresponds to a different level in man. So we said before that man is, I'm going to do it inside, but I just, to introduce the idea, man is made out of 4 components. Mm-hmm. He has his physical body, his ruach, his nefesh, his ruach, and his neshama. Mm-hmm. Now the last time we said that there's something interesting that happens whenever a person sins. The neshama actually leaves them. The neshama is never tainted by sin. Mm-hmm. And therefore, ultimately, when he ate, it only affected his physical body, his ruach, and his neshama. Mm-hmm. And these 3 things correspond to those levels of Adam's being that were extinguished. Okay, so I'm going to go back actually and just reread that. If you look on the bottom.
I think we're here.
Where? Yeah. Okay. So it says, right, Kihine ba'adam arba chalakim. Right? Because within man is, I'm just going back to the previous paragraph for a second, because within man are four components. HaChomer, the materiality, v'hanefesh, the spiritual vitality of his physical being, v'haruach, his spirit, v'haneshama, and his soul. V'hine haneshama, behold the soul, shehi ha'chelek eloki. That is the godly part that was invested into man by God himself, the chelek elokai mimal mamish. Eina mekabelet onesh al avon, it never receives punishment on sin, ki lo timatzeh ba'adam kasher yachata, because it will not be found within man when he sins. Ki im shebevo ha'adam lachato, when a person comes to sin, as he is about to do something that violates the will of God, he mistalekes mimeno, the neshama leaves him. Kekabalat chachmei amet, like it has been received through the tradition of those that know the true wisdom, meaning the Kabbalists. However, shlosha chalakim hanimtzaim, the three components that are to be found, that remain within him, shehem guf v'nefesh v'ruach, they are his body, his nefesh, and his spirit. Heim halokim, they are the ones that are afflicted by the tumah of the sin and eventually need to be punished to receive their rectification. V'hine ma'amad shlashtan, the standing of these three levels, laku ba'adam, they were afflicted or punished within man, ba'avono, through his sin, ayedei ha'isha, through the hands of the woman. Al kain, therefore, ratzah kadosh baruch hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, wanted, desired, tavo v'titakein et asher yivta, that she should have a rectification, some sort of way of correcting that which she perverted. Al chamro, on his materiality, on his physical body, shahaya chalato shel olam, we refer to that as the Chalah of the world. As we described in his creation, right, there was the earth itself would not produce the fruits of the trees till God, meaning everything, even though the commandment was on Tuesday, everything waited under the surface to present itself till God made Adam. And it says that was the aid, the vapor that rose from the earth, right? And God he collected dirt and he took from the moisture and he made together, the Medrash says, like somebody who makes a dough, right? And he's seen as the holy part that's removed. It's like the truma of the earth before the earth can produce perot. So we refer to Adam's physical body that was constructed from the earth as the Chalah.
The part of the Chalah that's separated.
Yeah, Chalah is the part of the dough that's separated. So if the earth was meaning the fruits of the trees that were produced from the earth were the ultimate bread of the earth, so to speak. So first, Adam had to be separated. That which is Kodesh LaHashem is separated before things that were meant to be benefited from can be present. Okay, so we're going to see all this inside now. Okay, so V'hu Masha Amruzal, that's what the sages say on the verse, Ve'ed ya'aleh min ha'aretz v'hishka et hagan, that a cloud, a vapor rose from the earth to quench the garden. Vayitzar havaya lokim et adam afar min ha'adama, that God fashioned, havaya lokim fashioned the Adam from the dirt of the earth, the Amra Abateinu Zal, and on that our sages say, Ki isha mikashkeshet isata b'mayim or mafreshet chala, like a woman who kneads her dough in water and then separates the challah. Kain asa kadosh baruch hu, that's how God, blessed be He, acted on the verse ve'edi alam aretz, that the vapor should rise from the earth. Umin hamayim ve'afar, and from this mixture of water and dirt, he separated Vayitzar et Adam, and he fashioned man. Nimtza, turns out, ayidei mitzvah zo, through the mitzvah of Chalah that was given to the woman, mitakenet avdan chamro, she is able to rectify the loss and the downgrade of his physical being. V'al hanefesh, and regarding the vitality of his physical being, ki hadam hu benefesh yichaper, we say that where is the nefesh to be found? In the blood. And that is what atones. Dama yishafech, her blood should flow, vichupar, and should atone, la, for her, bitzar dam nidot, with the pain and discomfort of the blood of her nida. Ve'al haruach, and referring to the spirit, hu haner hamer, that is the lamp that shines, that illuminates. Bilti mitkarev el chomer kanefesh, it doesn't get close, it is not resting on the material being of Adam, like his nefesh, mitakenet b'ner Shabbat, that is of a spiritual transcendent quality that is only rectified through the ner of Shabbat, the Shabbos candles. Shehu me'ein or nefesh yitera Shabbat Shabbos. It is like a minor aspect. It's a presence of that transcendent spiritual dimension of Shabbos that comes with that added nefesh, or what we said, the neshama yisera, meaning just like the world experiences that new nefesh on Shabbos, and a person gets an added transcendent soul on Shabbos, so too this ner Shabbat is to atone for the transcendent quality of his that was struck, which is the ruach. Shehu or elyon, that is the highlight, me'ein haruach, which corresponds to the spirit. Okay, and we said that the spirit was corresponds to the olam hagalgalim. No, I'm sorry. The nefesh is the olam hagalgalim, and the ruach is the malachim. Okay. And now we can come back to that which is said regarding the punishment of the woman. There will be an abundant and a double wording here in terms of abundance of her sorrow and her pregnancy. This double lashon of abundant, shehu kaful echad al amro etzvanech, one refers to her sadness, shehu ariboy dam nidot kol yameh, which is the abundance of blood of menstruation all her days, ukra itzavon, and the verse refers to this as sadness, alki hadava benidata, referring to she who is weak or faint in her menstruation, atzuvat ruach is of a sad spirit, v'hasheni, and the second word referring to making abundant, hu al amro vehironech, that is referring to her childbirth, giving birth, or rather her bringing the fetus to bear. Shehu tisha chadashim shel tzar ha'ibor, which refers to the 9 months of the pain of carrying the fetus. Be'etzev tel divanim, and then the verse continues and it says, with pain she will birth children. Al chavle yoleda yavo la, and that refers to the actual childbirth, the process of the birthing itself and all the pain attendant to that. And it will be ki al ma sheshafcha damo shel olam, on that which she spilled the blood of the world, who omer tzvonech, the pasuk says, your sadness, al dam nida, that refers to the blood of menstruation, v'al ma shekivta neiro shel olam, and that which she extinguished, the light of the world, who omer vehironech, the verse says about bringing a child, carrying a child for 9 months, because she has pain for 9 months, that during those 9 months there is an illumination from the Or Hashem, the godly light, or Ner LaNefesh, it is the light of the lamp of the Nefesh, Ha'ubar, of the fetus, Bikirba, which is within her. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. Okay, there's a Gemara, famous Gemara in Nida, that says that just like Adam saw with the Or HaGanuz, the hidden light, he was able to see from one end of the world to the other, it was a spiritual light, so too, whenever a child is developing in the fetus of, in the womb of its mother, there is a light above its head that shines from one side of the world to the other. And that is a special light that maintains the vitality of the child when it's not a complete vessel yet to hold the nefesh. So what's interesting is there is some sort of supernatural process by every child that since the body itself is not developed yet and cannot house a nefesh, God keeps it alive through a higher light, which has to shine above the child, so to speak, in a spiritual dimension the whole time that she carries this fetus. And actually that light is lost, just like Adam lost this light after eating from the tree of knowledge, so too that light leaves the baby when he's born. And that light corresponds to that learning of the Torah that happens with the Malach. So that's a Gemara in Nida, and it's a drasha on a verse in Eov. Here we're going to talk about it. Okay, so v'hu ma'amaram zal, these are the words of the sages in the Gemara Nida that says al pasuk. There's a verse in Eov that says v'hilo nero ale roshi, within the illumination of his candle, which is above my head, le'oro ele choshech, according to his light, I will go forth in darkness. Okay, so referring to the lamp ale roshi, above my head, shehu b'chadshei ha'ibor bebeten hamle'ah. This is a light that shines during the months that the fetus is developing in the belly, in the full belly, meaning in the womb. V'hu besum lev, and this is, if you pay attention, mahu haner hahu, what is this light? Im hi hanefesh, if this is actually the nefesh, eino arosho, that wouldn't be on top of the fetus's head, ki im bekirbo, but rather within him. Achu haruach shalem mala me'anefesh. This is referring to the ruach, the spirit, which is above the nefesh, he'atid lavo, which is meant to come eventually. Bo im yiske begadlo. See, normally everybody's born with a nefesh, and if you want to upgrade and have a ruach too and a neshama, you have to earn it in the way you live life down here. But here, the fetus kind of gets a freebie. As long as it's developing, it is attached directly to the ruach.
So this light of pregnancy is the ruach?
Yes. Im hi nefesh, if this was the nefesh, eino al rosho, it wouldn't make sense to refer to it to being above his head, ki im bekirbo, but rather it be within him. However, hu haruach, this is actually the spirit shelamala nefesh. You remember, the first time ruach appears in the Chumash, it's in the second pasuk of Bereshis. It says v'ruach elokim merachefet al pnei hamayim, and it is described as hovering over the waters. The ruach is always hovering; it's always above. Okay. He'atid lavo, so this ruach is eventually meant to come through being earned, right? Im yiske begadlo, if he merits as he matures, then he will have it within him. Ume'az, and from then on, hu al rosho, it is above his head, lahayir lavlad, right? So from when the baby is already developing, right, it's above his head to illuminate for the fetus. Pen yamut, lest he die. Toch choshech, within the darkness, kerev isha, within the innards of a woman. Ki ein benefesh achiyuni koch, because the nefesh, the vitality that's linked to physical being, right? It does not have a force lekayem ha'ubar in order to sustain the fetus, in lo ayidei or haruach, only through the light of the spirit, ka'amra, like that verse that we quoted in Eov that continues to say, la'oro, according to it's his light, ele choshech, I will go forth in darkness. Okay? Ve'ilmale zeh, if it were not for this, hayat tzarich yitbarach, God blessed be He, would need, so to speak, he would have to, ligmar havlad, to complete the development of the child, miyad, immediately, ulahotziyo, and to remove him, pen yamucham, lest he die within the womb, ka'asher asa b'toldot Adam, like he did initially with the first progeny of Adam, sheshnaim alu lamita v'yardu shiva. So the Medrash says that in Gan Eden, how did they procreate? 2 would climb on the bed, and according to this particular version of the Midrash, 7 would get off the bed.
Yeah, the 2 boys and the 3 gods.
Right. Okay, so it's referring to Cain and Hevel, and we know that Cain and Hevel came with their attendant wives and one more. So it says that in Gan Eden, process didn't exist. Everything was instantaneous. The relationship between cause and effect was immediate. It was immediate, and there was no consciousness to experience process. So everything was just like that. And so the Alshech HaKadosh is saying that without the ability to sustain an ubar with something beyond the nefesh, how could the ubar go through 9 months of development without a vitality? And indeed, that's why we described before this the process as being immediate, meaning a baby was immediately conceived and popped out fully formed as a child, meaning without any necessity to sustain them without their nefesh. Nimtza, it turns out, ki takanat havlad ayidei haner, the rectification or the fixing, the holding, the invitalizing of the fetus through this candle of the spirit, hu haruach, hi kalkalata isha, that is a direct need, right? That is a necessity of that which the isha corrupted. Shelaman titzta'er tisha chadashim, that now she has to take pains for 9 months. Tanuach harosha ibor, the head of the fetus has to is what's placed upon it, kol zmanahu, throughout the duration of those 9 months, is this extra light. So he seems to say that the ability to bear this light now Meaning, because a direct result of her sin is the menstruation process, and coming with that is this whole system of procreation now that happens that's different, including carrying the fetus for development for 9 months. So that requires now a supernatural kind of sustaining of the fetus, and somehow that carrying of the ruach itself in a supernatural way is linked to her extra pain.
So, but we are saying that the baby has the nefesh itself inside.
No, that's the whole point. The whole point is it cannot have the nefesh inside. It is an incomplete fetus to sustain the nefesh, and that's why it requires the ruach, and it's switched out for nefesh immediately when the baby is completed. That's the whole point.
So you're saying it hasn't got the materiality to hold the nefesh, and therefore it needs this ruach above the head.
Exactly, it's sustained supernaturally.
Sustain it supernaturally.
Right.
And then
which
when it's
is not what was necessary in Gan Eden. That's why, because since Gan Eden was instantaneous, it was just introduced as a nefesh right away.
Right. And the ruach right away.
No.
In Gan Eden.
Everything after the nefesh normally needs to be earned. It happens to be Adam was the only one not
I'm saying
like
in
that.
Adam's...
Yeah, but we're talking about his kids. His kids didn't have that.
So you're saying his kids had nefesh, but not
That's
ruach.
how it was supposed to be. Meaning, ideally, children, right, humans that were coming to the world after Adam, would come in completely formed with the nefesh, and then they would earn ruach and then neshama.
I see.
Yeah.
But now that we did the sin, so now we don't have even the nefesh, and therefore we need the ruach as a gift to sustain the body until it's born.
Right.
And then the nefesh comes in?
Yes, exactly.
At birth.
And when the baby is formed, right? Here, it's like the moment of birth. You know, there's something very, very interesting that happens. That everything physiologically that the baby needs in order to survive in the womb it's the exact opposite outside the womb. So, for example, the heart has to close, you know, and the baby is blue, it has to turn, meaning everything that specifically it needs to be, it's exactly reversed. And there's a moment where that happens, and it's it's actually a miracle, right? So that means that only at that moment when on the cellular level and on the mechanical level, the anatomy and physiology, when they're working the way it can be naturally in their own state, it's not drawing anymore from, it's not part of something which is a complete ecosystem of the mother and butzel to the mother, but it becomes its own thing and it's able to work on its own naturally. That's when the nefesh starts functioning.
So that's point
when the heart starts
nefesh
beating.
Comes in.
And that's when the Yetzer Hara comes in.
Very nice.
Yeah. So.
The nefesh hara comes in.
Yeah, but you only get your Yetzer Tov at your bar mitzvah. So here's my big question on this. My big question is, if this ruach is associated with the learning of Torah, but physiologically we know that this is the norm for all humanity after the sin. So does that mean that every child, even those not destined necessarily to be Jewish, they're sustained by a ruach before they get a nefesh? That's my question. That's my question. But I'm thinking about it. But anyway, that aside, I'm noting that. But we can go with the Alshech anyway here, that for some reason this is a universal description of Adam the way he was intended, which obviously is ultimately meant to manifest with Bnei Yisrael. But this is a question I have. You know, but that's, I guess, when we learn Nida, maybe we can explore this more.
But the thing is that, you know, the baby in the womb apparently knows the whole Torah, right? Because of the ruach.
But not on an intellectual level, because it doesn't even have a brain.
Right.
So we're not talking about the Torah that you and I normally relate to.
Now, I was going to say, because when you get your bar mitzvah, you don't actually know the whole Torah, right? So even though you've got the ruach, you haven't attained the Torah still.
Right. The Torah here can only be grasped through the lavush of thoughts and words and language, which conform to an intellect. And the level of Torah that the baby is nourishing from before that is totally beyond that. That's on the level of being, as his cells are being formed. So it's a totally different thing. Yeah. See, it's not even like the baby has to forget it. Meaning that which the locus, the domain, the field where we experience forgetfulness was never even engaged.
Right.
So it's a very deep thing. And we've mentioned it a couple times, but as I'm sure as it comes up again, we can explore it again. Okay, so, but this beautiful pasuk in Eov is a description, according to the Gemara Nida, of what's happening. So it says that I'm in darkness, that darkness is the innards of the womb. And I can go in light because I have this light which is above my head, which is referring to the ruach, which is above the nefesh. Okay. And this is all what a woman is going through as a result. Now, I just want to say, well, whatever, maybe at the end of this we'll talk about parallels to the moon. Because remember, the menstruation is linked to the cycle of the moon.
Right.
And the moon was the first instance in Bereshis that we know of where there was some sort of schism between masculinity and femininity had to conform to something which is seen. Okay, so maybe if you remind me, we'll get to this, but in the piece where we talked about the woman taking responsibility, that has to do with, I mentioned that the woman is not, meaning Adam's mistake was putting it on the woman. Mm-hmm. And there's a midrash that God says that, every Rosh Chodesh there is a karban chatas. Right. There's a karban tzibur, a communal a karban that's brought that is a chatas, a sin offering. Now, it's not a sin for anything that's specifically done, but it's a category of karban. It's within the sin offering karbans, and it conforms to those rules. Now, the midrash says...
It's as if it's Hashem's sin.
That's the midrash. The midrash says, bring it for me because I made the moon small.
Right. So
maybe we will come back to that at the end of this and discuss about the implications of Nida and explore that. Okay. So if it wasn't for this, God would have to finish the fashioning of the body of the fetus immediately, and to take him out, lest he expire within his mother. Which is what God did in the original first generation that was spawned by Adam and Chava. Sheshnayim alu lamita, 2 got on the bed, v'yardu shiva, and 7 got off. Nimtza, turns out, ki takanat havlad, math was different in Gan Eden. Okay, ki takanat havlad, the fixing and development of the fetus, ayidei haner is only facilitated through this light of the candle, hu haruach, that is the spirit, hi kakalat aisha, that which the woman had corrupted. That in order that she should be able to withstand the pain of 9 months, tanuach al rosh ha'ubar, it should rest on the head of the fetus, kol hazmanahu, throughout this time, the ruach. She'im lokein, if it were not so, he would have to, God, so to speak, would have to finish the fashioning of the baby immediately. And this is only because this is all designed now, this process, as a rectification for her having extinguished that particular candle. Al kain titzter al yado, and therefore she has to be pained through this candle now. So since she snuffed it out, she has to withstand it, and that's what's necessary to sustain the baby for the 9 months.
So hang on, so the ruach not only sustains the baby, it also is the source of her pain?
No, the source of her pain is the 9 months. And the 9 months is not possible without the ner. Since she has to go through 9 months, so the baby's got to be developed for 9 months, so it can't have a nefesh. So God kind of has to link it to the ruach for those 9 months in order that she should be able to go through this rectification. That's what I'm getting at this point. Okay. V'haner hahu, and this lamp, shene'amar bo, that the verse from Eov refers to it as bihilo nero ale roshi. The word hilo means with the illumination, but it sounds like halo. Bihilo nero ale roshi, with the illumination of the lamp upon my head. Hu ner Hashem nishmat adam. The pasuk says also, there's another verse that says, the lamp of God is the soul of Adam. Now here, we're referring to the ruach, not the soul. It's a little confusing. Okay. Shehu haruach.
Where are we mentioning the ruach?
This lamp is referred to.
And there is the ruach?
Yes, absolutely. That's what we've been saying. Right? Shehu haruach. Right? That's easy. Those are the next words. Again, he says that it's the ruach, but the pasuk says ner Hashem nishmas adam. It's always confusing like this. You find all the different psukim, and whenever the Mekubalim talk, it seems to be there's always like interchangeable or overlap, or it's all relative. Okay. So shehu haruach kisham.
Because it should have said ner Hashem ruach adam.
If you're going to say the two are the same, yeah. And we always talk about the ner specifically as the, okay. So, okay. Shehu haruach kisham al rov ha'adam o al kulam yidaber. Because over there, it's referring, when it says Adam, it doesn't mean Adam Rishon, it means all of Adam, meaning the species. Umi v'ami b'chol dar zocha l'neshama. Who in every generation even merits to having a soul? Sheyomar hakatuv, that the verse can actually say, Sheba chofes yitbarach kol chadrei batan. There's a verse that says that God searches all the different rooms, the chambers of the innards of a person to see who's got a soul, who's merited to have a soul. He's looking in there. Oh, do you have a soul? Do you have a soul? Meaning he seeks within a person, if a person is made up of his innermost essence, if he's worthy of being invested with a soul. So so that was all the ruach. So now let's talk about the Chalah. Okay? That which she corrupted or she destroyed in God's creation, the Chalah, the holy part that's separated from the dough of the world. Hu ha'adam, that is man himself, shehu frash, who was separated, kechala min ha'adama, who was separated like the Chalah from the earth. Titzta'er b'chavaleha, she will be pained with her tribulations, b'hafrish havlad mi bitna, upon separating the child from her womb. Right? The whole idea of a child growing within the woman and being a part of the woman, and then finally having to be separated. That's also the experience of taking a piece of the woman. That separation is kind of corresponds to this idea of separating the Chalah. Chalah ha-poreshet, it is like the Chalah which is separated min ha'isa from the dough, uchi tzirat adam, and like the forming or the creation of man, shehu fresh min adama, who is separated from the earth, ki teled b'tzirim v'chavalim, because she will give birth with contractions and pains. V'shema tomru, perhaps you will say, ki ein ze klal isha, that's not a curse to the woman, rak la'adam. The fact that she has to go through all this stuff, you think that this is just a curse for her, but that also has direct ramifications on man. Ki hi al kol ela, because through all these, tifrosh mi ba'ala, she will be separated from her husband, meaning they cannot be together and engage as husband and wife in an intimate way when she is experiencing her Nida, or during, as a result of the childbirth, and even afterwards for a male child for 7 days, right, and for a girl for 2 weeks. So through all this, you will say, well, this can't be seen as a punishment directly for her, corresponding to all these things, because really that has implications on both of them, and he has to suffer too. So, Kemosha Amruzal, like Chazal say in the Gemara Nida, Shenishba'at ba'et chavle yoleda, that actually, there's a halacha that she has to bring a special karban, yoledet, in order to eat from kachim again. That a woman, even after she's allowed to her husband, she has to wait 66 days after the initial tumah of childbirth in order to bring a karban. She's a mechusar kapara. She's lacking in being able to eat from kachim till she brings the karban. Now, karban yoledes is a type of chatas. It's also a sin offering. And there's a whole discussion in the Gemara why she should have to bring a sin offering after she gives birth. And the answer that's known from the Gemara is that usually when a woman is experiencing the intense pains of childbirth, she swears that she's never going to be with her husband again. Mm-hmm. And if you take a poll, this is actually quite common. This actually happens in the birthing room. I always thought it was a Gemara, but it really happens. So the Gemara says in order to take off her vow, and because she swore that, part of that process, that's actually, we can expect that's built into the process, and she needs to bring a chatas because of it. So the Gemara says that's the reason, one of the ways of understanding why it's a sin offering. So she nishbat, she swears, be'et chavle yoleda, at the time of the pains of her childbirth, shelot tizdakek od leba'ala. Isn't it amazing? To be a woman, we cannot relate. But I'm saying this is like such an amazing, amazing thing that defines just, the experience of having to be a woman. And so she swears shalot tizdakek od levala, that she will not be again intimate with her husband. Lezeh amar, for this it says. So the rest of the verse says. So it's like this. God is saying, okay, you're going to have this, and you're going to have this pain, and this is going to be a ramification, and all this stuff has to do with being fertile and being able to bring the next generation to the world, and all the different processes, whether it's 9 months of the fetus being developed, or whether it's the actual pain of childbirth, and all that, results in swearing that, gosh, it's just not worth it even having to be with a husband. And then so the pasuk follows and says, and you know what else? To your husband your desire will be, and he will rule over you. What's that talking about? That's this stage here. Once she swears that she will never be with her husband again, ve'el ishech teshukatech. So the verse continues, and to your husband still you will have a desire. So even when you swear it off, you will still be driven, attracted to be with your husband. Ki al kol zeh lo tifrosh. After having gone through all that, you just won't be able to stop yourself. Ki miyad, immediately, bilita mitcharetet. After she finally gives birth and she holds that baby with that smile on her face, she feels bad, mitcharetet. She regrets what she swore to do because she's looking at that baby and it was all worth it. So v'al shvuata, and on her oath, mevia karban yoledet, she brings the sacrifice of the woman who gives birth. V'hine, kol hara'ah hazot, all this terrible thing, al hitkomema alav lahachilo haita. It was all because she stood upon him to feed him, that which was forbidden. Ba'amra, when she said, lama tamut hi, why should she die? V'hu yamot chai la'olam, and he should remain living forever. Umagan l'rabaten, meaning there was all that. All this is the package which is coming to directly address and fix that desire, that plan, and that insecurity that she felt that caused her to sin. V'hine kol hara hazot al hitkomema alav la'achilo haita be'amra lama tamut hi ve'hu yamod chai la'olam u'ma gam l'rabotenu zal. And also our sages say in Bereshit Rabbah shekama alav b'chozek yad, that she actually stood upon him in a threatening way, meaning she forced him. Al kein nigmara alata b'ma shehu yimshal ba. Therefore her curse concludes with the statement that he will rule upon her, meaning ultimately he will have the final say, v'zehu v'hu yimshal bach, and he will rule upon you. Okay.
So how did we answer the point that said don't think it's a punishment to the man that she has to be separated from him? What was the solution?
Because she's not separated from him. Even when she can't be with him, ultimately she always comes back to him. Meaning she cannot, even in the experience of the pain, where as a result of the pain, she reaches certain conclusions about how she is unhappy with her state as a woman. She still is a woman, and the existentially, the woman here has been determined by God to follow and run after. Meaning she is still desirous of the relationship and in a need for herself on an existential level to be connected to him that way.
So just to recap, we're saying that childbirth is as a result of the damage to ruach, right? There's a link with the ruach.
The 9 months.
The 9 months.
The 9 months is the ruach.
The pain of the childbirth is a consequence of her extinguishing his ruach.
No, that's the isa, meaning separating the Chalah, what happens at the 9 months is separate from the pains of childbirth itself. The pains of childbirth itself is the pains of separating the baby from the mother. And that's also corresponds to the Chalah. Right.
That's the Chalah.
Right.
The childbirth.
And that's when the nefesh comes in, which is also has to do with the body.
Right.
Okay? The having to bear for 9 months for being an incubator for a fetus, right? That has to do with the ruach, yeah, because the baby is sustained then through the ruach, and the blood of Nida is the spilling of blood of man, also on the physical level of his body, meaning the fact that his body dies. We associate that with the nefesh, which we say is in the blood, and that's meaning the menstruation that she experiences on a monthly basis is a tikkun of that. So you have a tikkun of the guf, and which is the isa, which is the 9 months and also childbirth. You have the ruach, right, and you have, what do we
So
have?
what's
The
the
nefesh, the
mitzvah
guf, and the ruach. I'm sorry, the nefesh. The nefesh is the childbirth, right?
Nefesh
Sorry, the nefesh is the blood. Okay, adam hu nefesh, right? The nefesh is the blood that is on a regular basis. The 9 months is the ruach, and the body itself, right? And the body, which is the isa, is the childbirth. There you go. We can make a chart. There's nefesh, ruach, neshama. There's the body. There's the body, the nefesh, and the ruach. Right, the body, the nefesh, and the ruach. There's the Chalah. One second. Okay, here's what we're missing here. There's 3 things.
There are 3 things.
And within one of them, there's 3 things. So it's like this. Okay, there's Nida, Chalah, Hadlaka, Sneh.
Yeah.
That's the guf, the nefesh, and the ruach. But then within the Nida, aside from the Nida, you have the Nida, the 9 months, and the birth. We have Etzvonech and Heronech, and Teldi Banim. Those are 3 things mentioned in the pasuk. There's Etzvonech is Nida, Heronech is 9 months, and Teldi Banim is childbirth. And they also are wrapped up in this because they each have different aspects. So for example, the Nida is the nefesh, like we said. The birthing, the 9 months is the ruach, and the birthing is the isa. So all those 3 happen to be within, meaning the pasuk it says, aside from, okay, so there's different things going on. There's the 3 mitzvahs she has, which are not mentioned in the pasuk, and we're explaining all the things of the actual pasuk. So just like in the medrash that says that these 3 things correspond to the guf, the nefesh, and the ruach, so also the Alshech HaKadosh will plug in the guf and the nefesh and the ruach into the things in this pasuk. That's the structure. Okay? That's why we were getting confused.
So, but the conclusion is that the conclusion. I just want to get the chart in my head.
Okay, so forget the 3 mitzvot right now.
Forget the mitzvot.
Those 3 mitzvot were just an indication to us that it was guf, nefesh, and ruach. So now in the pasuk itself, where do you see it says be'etzev, be'itzvonech, and heronech? Etzvonech is dam nida. That's the nefesh, right? Heronech is the tisha chadashim, the 9 months. That is the ruach, that's the nero aroshi, right? And the be'etzev teldi banim, that's the yoledet, that's the isa, that's the hafrashat chalah. Okay?
So all 3 mitzvot are within the
not all 3 mitzvot, but all 3 levels are attendant in the aspects that are described in the pasuk. And then all this and how that affects the relationship of Isha and her husband, which is the politics that made her feed him, that is the rest of the pasuk, that she will still pursue him, and ultimately he will lead. Okay, that's the Alshech on the pasuk. Yeah, I was a little confused, but I think we got it straight.
I hope so.
Okay.
I'll have to read it.
Okay, so I'm going to say it one more time. Okay,
again.
so it's like this. Let's just clear and let's keep it simple.
Yeah.
The pasuk says the following things. It says that God will double and make abundant the pain of her being menstruating, meaning a regular menstruation cycle. Also, the 9 months, right, of bringing a kid to bear, and it will be painful. There will be a separate package of pain birthing, and she will still be driven to follow him, and ultimately he rules. Okay? So, how does the Alshech understand this? That the abundance of the menstruation, that is a tikkun for the nefesh that she corrupted. The 9 months is a tikkun for the ruach. The childbearing is a tikkun, actual birth is a tikkun for the Chalah. So there you have ner, Chalah, and damnida, all in those 3 things. And then, in terms of the relationship, why did she want him to eat? Because she didn't want to be without him, so that's why she chases after him, even after experiencing all this, and ultimately he rules over her because she wanted to rule over him.
I see.
Okay?
Beautiful.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you for explaining that.
Okay, I'm glad. No, because I needed that too. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Next time you want to get something straight, you say it over to me.
Okay.
Because you're giving me the opportunity all the time. Okay.
Yeah, we have a question.
Yes. I love these politically charged sugyot so that I can field questions.
Okay. Where the national?
No. These questions are always because yeah. Okay. So let's take a step back. Okay. Where does the neshama go when somebody sins?
It moves out of the way.
It leaves. It's never there. It's never
So
tainted by sin. So the
he wasn't
neshama was not
involved.
present, right?
He
We
wasn't
said that. Okay.
involved in the sin, and therefore he's not involved in the punishment.
Right.
Right.
And I don't know why we're asking if there was an extra level of guf. We're going to, for the benefit of this question, we're going to restate. Over here, since the neshama is not present, we have three ingredients left. Boaz, are you privy to the three? Right? A human being incorporates 4 elements. Okay. Body, nefesh, ruach, neshama. Body, guf, right? That's his physical materiality. Then you have the nefesh, which is the vitality of a living thing. It's a nefesh. Okay? It's spiritual, meaning it's transcendent, but it's not spiritual, meaning every living thing has a nefesh. An animal has a nefesh. That's, we say, is in the blood. You know, you can't reconstruct a nefesh in the laboratory. Scientists can't bring something into life. They can only continue life that's already there, right? So that transcendent thing is the nefesh. Okay? Then you have the spirit. That's a higher level. That's the ruach. And then, on top of that, you have the neshama, the soul. Right? We said that there's 4 orders of creation, 4 worlds, and each one contributed to a part of a man, right? God invested from his being, so to speak, the neshama, the supernal level, and that's what leaves you before you sin, right? It's the dignity of God. That's the part that he put. It doesn't get messed up, right? Under that, you have the ruach of somebody merited. Under that, you have a nefesh. You can't have a living being meaning you can have a body, but it's not alive unless it has a nefesh. And then you have the body itself. So we know that Adam Rishon's body experienced a kilkul, a corruption, upon eating from the Eitz Hadat. The tikkun for the role that Chava had in the corruption of the body, that is her menstruation. Okay? The tikkun of the destruction of the ruach that was present in Adam is the extra ruach that God invests in the fetus while it's being developed during the 9 months. Okay? The fact that Adam's body was seen as the Chalah of the earth, that is the tikkun that she goes through in the separation of a new body that comes into being upon the birth of a child. Okay? And that corresponds to the guf. So there we have the guf, the body, right? The nefesh, which is the animal vitality, and we have the ruach. The soul is not present in this equation. Okay, is that clear? I think that's clear. Okay.
Very good.
Okay. Very good. Okay, that's our piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
You wanna hold it there, and then we'll do Parad Yitzchak, or?